I bled for Canada, haunted by war's screams, only to crawl home and be spat on by my own flesh and blood. They called me a wreck, banished me like garbage while they crowned my sister their perfect princess. Every scar I carry, every nightmare that rips me apart, they ignored it all. Then, at a Canada Day barbecue, they saw my $15 million fortune and had the audacity to demand it, shrieking I owed them for daring to survive. The betrayal cut deeper than any bullet. My heart shattered, my soul screamed, how could family stab me this deep? If this injustice sets your blood on fire, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell to join this gut-wrenching story. Your support fuels this fight for truth. I'm Michael Tremblay, 40 years old, a Canadian veteran who clawed through hell to rise. Let's unravel this betrayal. Let me take you back to Thunder Bay, Ontario, where the icy winds off Lake Superior cut through you like a knife. That's where I grew up, in a working-class house on McVicker Street, with the smell of pine and diesel from the pulp mills always in the air. I'm Michael Tremblay, 40 years old, a Canadian veteran who carried the weight of war and a family that never saw me. Before Afghanistan broke me, I was just a kid who loved playing hockey on frozen ponds and helping Dad fix his old Ford pickup. My parents, James and Linda, weren't rich, but we were tight, until my sister Sophie came along when I was 8. She was born premature, frail, and the doctors said she might not make it. From that moment, my world flipped. Sophie became their sun, moon, and stars, while I faded into the shadows. I'll never forget the first time it hit me. I was 9, down with a cold, coughing in the living room. Mom's eyes went wide with panic. "Michael, you're a danger to Sophie," she snapped, bundling me off to Aunt Nancy's house 3 blocks away. Aunt Nancy, a retired RCMP officer, was the only one who didn't treat me like a walking germ. She'd let me sip hot chocolate and tell stories about her patrols in Kenora, but even her kindness couldn't erase the sting. Every sniffle, every sneeze, and I was shipped out, sometimes for weeks. "Sophie's delicate," Dad would say, barely looking up from her medical charts. Delicate? She was healthy by age 5, but the special treatment never stopped. By high school, I was invisible. I'd score goals at hockey games, but James and Linda were too busy cheering at Sophie's figure skating recitals. One night, I won MVP at a tournament in Fort William. I rushed home, trophy in hand, heart pounding. "Mom, Dad, look," I said, holding it up. Linda glanced over, distracted. "That's nice, Michael, but Sophie's got a competition tomorrow. Can you keep it down?" Sophie smirked from the couch. "Yeah, Mike, some of us have real talents." That moment burned. I wasn't their son, I was a problem to manage. While Sophie got new skates and private lessons, I worked weekends at Tim Hortons to buy my own gear. Thunder Bay's harsh winters mirrored my reality, cold, unforgiving, and lonely. But that loneliness forged me. It pushed me to enlist in the Canadian Forces at 18, chasing a purpose my family never gave me. Little did I know, the real war was waiting back home. When I enlisted in the Canadian Forces at 18, I thought I was escaping the cold rejection of my family in Thunder Bay. I traded the icy winds off Lake Superior for the blistering sands of Afghanistan, hoping to find purpose. But war doesn't give you purpose, it gives you scars. I served 2 tours with the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, saw things no one should ever see, friends blown apart, villages reduced to rubble, the constant hum of danger. I came home in 2009, 24 years old, with a chest full of medals and a mind full of ghosts. Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, clung to me like frost on a Thunder Bay winter morning. Nightmares woke me screaming, the smell of gunpowder still choking my lungs. I'd flinch at car horns, thinking they were mortar blasts. I wasn't Michael Tremblay, the hockey kid anymore. I was a shattered soldier, and my family didn't care. Back in Thunder Bay, I hoped for a warm welcome, maybe a hug from Mom or a pat on the back from Dad. Instead, I got pity cloaked in disdain. "Michael, you need to pull yourself together," Linda said one evening, her eyes fixed on Sophie's figure skating schedule pinned to the fridge. We can't have you scaring Sophie with your episodes. Episodes. That's what they called my panic attacks, like I was some broken appliance. James barely spoke, just grunted about how my issues were stressing the family. Sophie, now 16 and thriving, would roll her eyes. God, Mike, why can't you just be normal, she'd say, flipping her hair as she headed to practice. Normal? I'd survived ambushes in Kandahar, carried my buddy's body through a firefight, and she wanted normal? Their words cut deeper than shrapnel, each one a reminder I was a burden, not a son. The worst came on Canada Day, 2010, at our family's annual barbecue on McVicker Street. The whole neighborhood was out, kids waving sparklers, the air thick with the smell of grilled burgers and maple-glazed ribs. I tried to join in, forcing a smile as I flipped sausages on the barbecue. But then the fireworks started. Those bright, crackling bursts over Lake Superior weren't a celebration to me, they were war. Each boom was a grenade, each flash a muzzle flare. My heart raced, my hands shook, and I dropped the tongs, staggering to the backyard's edge. I collapsed against the cedar fence, gasping, my vision blurring with memories of blood and sand. I needed my family, just one person to hold my hand. But no one came. Inside, the party roared on. I could hear Sophie's laughter, James clinking beer bottles with neighbors, Linda fussing over the dessert table. Sophie's skating routine is tomorrow, I overheard Linda say to Aunt Nancy. She's our star. Our star. I was fighting to breathe, drowning in my own mind, and they didn't even notice. Finally, Aunt Nancy found me, her RCMP-trained eyes softening. Michael, you're stronger than this, she whispered, pressing a Tim Hortons cup of black coffee into my trembling hands. You've survived worse. Don't let them define you. She sat with me under the stars, the only one who saw me as more than a problem. That night, I vowed to rebuild myself, not for them, but for the kid who used to dream on Thunder Bay's frozen ponds. But the pain didn't stop there. A week later, I tried to talk to Linda about my PTSD, hoping for a shred of understanding. I sat at the kitchen table, the same one where I'd once carved my initials as a kid. Mom, I'm struggling, I said, my voice cracking. The war's still in my head. She sighed, barely looking up from her grocery list. Michael, we're all struggling. Sophie's got a big competition in Winnipeg next month, and it's expensive. Can you not make this about you? I stared at her, my chest tightening. James walked in, catching the end of it. Son, maybe see a doctor or something. Don't upset your mother. Sophie breezed through, earbuds in. Yeah, Mike, don't stress Mom out. Some of us have lives. I left that house feeling like I'd been gutted. My medals, my sacrifices, my pain, they meant nothing to them. Aunt Nancy's words echoed, you're stronger than this. She was right. I'd survived war. I could survive my family. That rejection, that soul-crushing dismissal, lit a fire in me. I wasn't going to be their broken soldier anymore. After that Canada Day barbecue in 2010, when my family left me shaking in the backyard, I knew I couldn't rely on them to see my worth. Thunder Bay's cold streets and the ghosts of Afghanistan still haunted me, but Aunt Nancy's words, you're stronger than this, burned brighter than the fireworks that broke me. I was done being the broken soldier. At 24, with nothing but a military pension and a battered spirit, I decided to rebuild myself. I wasn't chasing my family's approval anymore, I was fighting for the kid who used to skate on Lake Superior's frozen edges, dreaming of something bigger. That fight started with a single step, right back in Thunder Bay, and it was the hardest one I'd ever taken. Aunt Nancy, the retired RCMP officer who'd been my only anchor, saw something in me that James, Linda, and Sophie never did. She'd sit me down in her cozy bungalow on Red River Road, pouring strong black coffee from a Tim Hortons thermos, and talk about her days securing Canada's northern towns. Michael, you've got a soldier's instincts, she said one evening, her voice steady like she was still on duty. Use them. Security's a trade you can own. I took her advice to heart. In 2011, I landed a part-time gig with a small security firm in Thunder Bay, guarding a warehouse near the grain elevators. It wasn't glamorous, $15 an hour, 12-hour night shifts in a freezing guard shack, but it was a start. I'd patrol under the dim glow of sodium lights, my military training kicking in, spotting gaps in their setup, a blind spot in the cameras, a weak lock on the loading bay. I wasn't just a guard, I was a soldier analyzing a battlefield. I started teaching myself about security systems, CCTV, motion sensors, access controls. I'd spend my days off at the Thunder Bay Public Library, poring over manuals and YouTube tutorials on a clunky desktop, learning how to wire cameras and program alarms. My tiny apartment on Algoma Street became a workshop, littered with secondhand circuit boards and tools I bought from Canadian Tire. Linda called it a mess when she visited once, sniffing at my hobby. "Michael, why don't you get a real job?" she said, glancing at Sophie's latest skating trophy on her phone. "This tech stuff won't pay the bills." I bit my tongue, but inside, I was seething. A real job? I'd survived war zones, and she thought I was wasting my life. Sophie chimed in, laughing. "Yeah, Mike, what's next? Guarding mall parking lots?" Their words stung, but they fueled me. I wasn't building alarms for them, I was building my future. The turning point came in 2012, when I was 27. My boss at the security firm, a gruff guy named Tom, sent me to consult on a job in Sault Ste. Marie, 700 kilometers east of Thunder Bay. A lumber company had lost $100,000 in equipment to theft, and their security was a joke, 2 outdated cameras and a padlock a kid could pick. I walked the site, my military instincts on high alert, and spotted the problem, a back gate hidden by pines, wide open to intruders. I pitched a full overhaul, new HD cameras, motion sensors, and a reinforced gate. Tom was skeptical. "You're a rookie, Tremblay. You sure about this?" I looked him dead in the eye. "I've secured checkpoints under fire, Tom. I know what I'm doing." He gave me the green light, and I spent 2 weeks installing the system myself, working 16-hour days in the biting Algoma cold. When I flipped the switch, the client was floored. "Tremblay, you saved us a fortune," the owner said, shaking my hand. He paid me a $5,000 bonus, more money than I'd seen in years. That job changed everything. The lumber company hired me for a year-long contract, paying $60,000 to maintain their system. I quit the warehouse gig and started freelancing, driving my beat-up Dodge Caravan across northern Ontario to consult for factories, small banks, even a casino in Sudbury. Every contract sharpened my skills: wiring, coding, threat assessment. I wasn't just fixing cameras, I was designing fortresses. Aunt Nancy was my only cheerleader. "You're building something real, Michael," she said over poutine at a Thunder Bay diner. "Don't let them dim your light." Them. She meant James, Linda, and Sophie, who still saw me as a failure. At a family dinner in 2013, Sophie bragged about her new job as a receptionist in Winnipeg. "I'm moving up, Mike," she said, smirking. "Maybe you should try an office job." I smiled, hiding the fact that I'd just signed a $200,000 contract with a mining company. Their doubt was my fire. I was no longer the invisible kid or the broken vet. I was Michael Tremblay, and I was just getting started. By 2014, at 29 years old, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. That $200,000 contract with the mining company in Sudbury was my launchpad. I took every cent I'd saved, every ounce of grit from my military days, and founded North Shield Security in Toronto. Picture a cramped office above a Queen Street noodle shop, smelling of fried dumplings, with a single laptop and a dream. That's where it started. I built systems that protected everything from Bay Street banks to Vancouver art galleries, using skills honed in Afghanistan's chaos, anticipating threats, securing perimeters, outsmarting risks. By 2016, North Shield had offices in Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal, with 50 employees and contracts worth $5 million Canadian dollars a year. My penthouse overlooking Lake Ontario, with its floor-to-ceiling windows and sleek maple furniture, was a far cry from my Algoma Street apartment. I'd made it, but to my family in Thunder Bay, I was still Michael Tremblay, the broken vet tinkering with cameras. Keeping my success a secret wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Every time I drove back to Thunder Bay for Sunday dinners, I swapped my tailored suits for a faded Blue Jays hoodie and jeans from Mark's work warehouse. I'd park my new Audi Q7 a block away and borrow Aunt Nancy's rusty Toyota Corolla to pull up at my parents' house on McVicker Street. Why hide? Because I knew James, Linda, and Sophie would turn my success into their entitlement. I'd seen it before, Sophie's skating lessons, her Winnipeg condo, all funded by their bottomless expectations. I wasn't ready for them to claw at my empire. So, I played the part, the struggling vet, scraping by, nodding along as Sophie bragged about her big city receptionist job. I got a raise, Mike, she'd say, flashing a new Michael Kors purse at a 2015 family barbecue. Maybe one day you'll afford something nice. I forced a smile, my latest $1.2 million contract burning a hole in my inbox. The irony was almost delicious. While Linda fussed over Sophie's latest Instagram post, I was securing a deal with a Montreal museum to protect a $10 million exhibit of Inuit art. While James rambled about his fishing trips on Lake Nipigon, I was on calls with CEOs in Calgary, designing systems to guard oil refineries. My life was split in two. By day, I was a titan in Canada's security industry, jetting between cities, shaking hands with executives. By night, I was poor Mike, eating Linda's overcooked pot roast and dodging Sophie's jabs. Still fixing cameras, she'd say, smirking over her wine glass. You should talk to my boss, he might have a job for you. I'd nod, biting back the truth, that my company's revenue could buy her boss's firm 10 times over. Aunt Nancy caught my eye once, her RCMP sharp gaze twinkling. You're playing a long game, Michael, she whispered at a 2016 Christmas dinner. Stay sharp. She was the only one who knew, and she kept my secret like a vault. But the secrecy wasn't just about avoiding drama, it was about protecting the life I'd built. Every contract, every late-night coding alarm systems, every handshake with a client was mine, earned through sweat and scars. I'd fought for Canada, survived PTSD, and clawed my way up without a single cheer from James or Linda. Letting them in felt like handing my medals to Sophie to pawn for her next vacation. Still, I couldn't fully cut them off. In 2017, I overheard Linda on the phone, stressing about their mortgage payments. Sophie's career wasn't helping. She'd blown $10,000 on a trip to Whistler, posting selfies in designer ski gear. I sat in my Toronto penthouse, staring at the CN Tower's glow, and made a choice. I set up an anonymous account to send $3,000 Canadian a month to their bank in Thunder Bay. No note, no name, just a lifeline. Linda thought it was a distant cousin's charity. Sophie claimed it was her hustle paying off. I let them believe it. Their ignorance was my shield, but deep down, it hurt. I was saving their home, and they still saw me as a failure. Every Sunday, I drive 1,400 kilometers from Toronto to Thunder Bay, sit through their dismissals, and swallow my pride. I wasn't just hiding my wealth, I was hiding my worth. But that secret was a ticking bomb, and Canada Day 2018 was about to light the fuse. By 2017, North Shield Security was a powerhouse, and I, Michael Tremblay, was living a double life. In Toronto, I was a titan, sealing million-dollar deals to protect Canada's biggest banks and museums. In Thunder Bay, I was still the broken vet, swallowing my pride over Sunday dinners at my parents' house on McVicker Street. My secret, $15 million CAD in assets in a company spanning 3 cities, was a heavy weight, but I carried it to protect what I'd built. Yet, despite the years of dismissal, the cold shoulders from James and Linda, and Sophie's endless smirks, I couldn't let my family sink. They'd shaped me, even if it was through neglect. So, I made a choice that burned my soul. I started funneling money to them, anonymously, to keep their world afloat while they mocked mine. It began one night in my Toronto penthouse, the CN Tower's lights glinting through my windows. I'd overheard Linda on the phone during a 2017 Easter dinner, her voice tight with worry. James, we're behind on the mortgage again, she whispered, thinking I couldn't hear. Sophie's rent in Winnipeg is killing us. Sophie, now 25, had moved to Winnipeg for her big city receptionist job, but her Instagram told a different story: designer coats, brunches at the Forks, and a $2,000 Canada Goose parka she swore was a bargain. I sat there, sipping lukewarm Molson Canadian, my heart torn. They'd never cared about my struggles, my PTSD, my medals, my grind, but they were still family. So, I set up a numbered account through a Thunder Bay credit union, sending $3,000 Canadian a month to cover their mortgage and Sophie's expenses. No name, no trace, just a quiet deposit they'd never linked to me. Linda thought it was charity from a distant cousin in Kenora. James called it dumb luck. Sophie? She took the credit. My hard work's finally paying off, she posted on Instagram, posing with a new Louis Vuitton bag in front of Winnipeg's Assiniboine River. I saw that post on my phone, 1,400 kilometers away in Toronto, and nearly crushed my coffee mug. Hard work? I was bankrolling her lifestyle while she mocked my camera-fixing job. At a 2017 Thanksgiving dinner, she waved her new iPhone X under my nose. "Look, Mike, maybe one day you'll afford one," she said, laughing as Linda nodded proudly. "Sophie's doing so well," Linda added, cutting me a slice of dry turkey. "You should take notes, Michael." I forced a smile, my latest $1.5 million contract with a Vancouver tech firm burning in my mind. Their ignorance was a knife, twisting deeper with every visit. I kept the payments going, month after month, $36,000 a year straight from my pocket. By 2018, I'd upped it to $4,000 a month when Linda mentioned medical bills for James's bad knee. I told myself it was for the house I grew up in, the one where I'd carved my initials into the kitchen table. But every time I drove to Thunder Bay, hiding my Audi Q7 and slipping into Aunt Nancy's old Corolla, the resentment grew. Aunt Nancy was the only one who sensed something. At a family barbecue by Lake Superior, she pulled me aside near the fire pit, the smell of cedar smoke thick in the air. "Michael, you're carrying too much," she said, her RCMP eyes piercing. "Why help them when they don't see you?" I shrugged, staring at the waves. "They're family, Nancy. What else can I do?" She shook her head. "You're too good for them." The breaking point was brewing. Sophie's spending spiraled, $5,000 on a Banff ski trip, $3,000 on a vintage Chanel scarf she swore was a steal. She'd post stories from Calgary's rooftop bars, captioning them, "Living my best life," while I wired money to keep their lights on. At a 2018 Victoria Day dinner, Linda sighed over coffee. "Michael, it's so sweet you come back for these dinners," she said, patting my hand like I was a charity case. "You must be scraping by with that security job." Sophie snorted, scrolling her phone. "Yeah, Mike, maybe try Uber. More stable." I clenched my jaw, my company's $4 million quarterly profit flashing in my head. I was saving them, and they were laughing in my face. The secret was suffocating me, a ticking bomb ready to explode. Canada Day 2018 was just weeks away, and I had no idea it would detonate everything I'd hidden. Canada Day 2018 was supposed to be a celebration, a chance to blend into my family's world one more time before the weight of my secret crushed me. I'd spent years hiding my $15 million empire, funneling $4,000 a month to keep James and Linda's house on McVicker Street from foreclosure while Sophie flaunted her self-made lifestyle. I decided to go all out for the barbecue, hiring a top-tier catering team from Toronto's Distillery District to bring a spread that'd make Thunder Bay's potlucks look like amateur hour: cedar plank salmon, maple glazed ribs, and Nanaimo bars so rich they cost $10 a piece. I pulled up in Aunt Nancy's beat-up Corolla, my Audi Q7 hidden a block away, wearing a plain roots hoodie to keep up the charade. The backyard was buzzing with 25 relatives and neighbors, Canadian flags waving, the air thick with barbecue smoke and anticipation for the Lake Superior fireworks. I thought I could play the poor Mike role one more day. I was wrong. The dinner started smoothly, the catering team weaving through the crowd with trays of poutine and craft beer from Sleeping Giant Brewery. Linda beamed, thinking I'd scraped together my last loonies for the spread. Michael, this is so generous, she said, patting my arm like I was a struggling kid. Sophie, decked out in a $3,000 Burberry sundress I'd indirectly paid for, wrinkled her nose at the salmon. Store-bought, Mike? Mom's cooking is way better, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I gritted my teeth, my $2 million contract with a Montreal bank pulsing in my mind. I excused myself to check an urgent email from a client, a $3 million deal to secure a Vancouver tech campus. I set up my iPad in my old childhood bedroom, the one Linda kept frozen in time with my old hockey posters. The screen glowed with North Shield Securities financials, $15.2 million in assets, $5 million in annual revenue. I left it unlocked for one fatal minute. Sophie barged in, no knock, as usual, hunting for a phone charger. Her eyes locked on my iPad, and I saw the glint of malice. What's this, Mike? Playing big shot, she sneered, snatching the device before I could react. She stormed back to the backyard, holding it like a trophy, and flipped it around for the whole crowd to see. Look at this, she screamed, her voice cutting through the chatter. Mike's got $15 million. He's been hiding it while we struggle. The crowd froze, beers halfway to mouths, kids clutching sparklers. The screen blazed with my bank balance and a contract summary, $3 million pending. Linda's face went white, then red. James dropped his fork into the poutine. Aunt Nancy's eyes widened, but she stayed silent, her RCMP calm holding steady. Chaos erupted under the Canadian flags. Linda lurched to her feet, knocking over a chair. Michael, how could you, she wailed, tears streaming. We're drowning in bills, and you're sitting on millions? James slammed his beer down, his voice shaking. You let us scrape by, you selfish bastard? Sophie, her eyes wild, pointed at me. I deserve that money. I've been working my ass off in Winnipeg, and you're hoarding this? Give me $5 million, Mike, or I'll make sure everyone knows what a fraud you are. Fraud? I'd built North Shield from a Thunder Bay warehouse to a national empire. I'd sent them $48,000 a year while they mocked me. My blood boiled, years of pain, PTSD, rejection, invisibility, surging like the fireworks about to light up the sky. I stood, my voice low but sharp enough to cut steel. Struggle? I've been sending you $4,000 a month for years, Linda. I paid your mortgage, Sophie's rent, your damn Whistler trips. I fought for Canada, survived hell, and built this with no help from you. You missed my hockey games, my medals, my nightmares. And now you demand my life's work? The backyard went silent, the only sound the distant waves of Lake Superior. Sophie's jaw dropped, her fake tears starting. Linda clutched her chest, gasping, You're lying. You're just a security guard. James muttered, Ungrateful kid. I grabbed my iPad, my heart pounding with rage and release. The secret was out, and the family I'd saved was tearing me apart. The fireworks started, but the Real explosion was right there on McVicker Street. The Canada Day 2018 barbecue on McVicker Street left my world in ashes. I'd laid bare my truth, $15 million earned through North Shield Security, $4,000 a month sent to save my family's home, only to face their venom. Sophie's demand for $5 million, Linda's tears of betrayal, and James's accusations of selfishness echoed in my head as I drove back to Toronto, the Lake Superior horizon fading in my rearview mirror. I thought the explosion at that barbecue was the end, but it was just the spark. My family, the ones I'd carried through their debts, were about to drag me into a war uglier than anything I'd faced in Afghanistan. The pain of their betrayal was raw, but what came next, a lawsuit and a public smear campaign, cut so deep it nearly broke me again. It started the day after Canada Day. My phone buzzed relentlessly, 62 missed calls by noon, most from Linda, some from James, and a few from cousins I hadn't seen since high school. Texts flooded in, a barrage of guilt and greed. Linda's messages were a roller coaster. Michael, how could you lie to us? At 8:12 a.m. Then, we need to talk about sharing this fairly, by 9:45 a.m., and by midnight, Sophie deserves a better life. James sent one curt line, "You owe us for raising you." Sophie, true to form, took to social media. She posted a TikTok from her Winnipeg apartment, her voice dripping with crocodile tears. "My brother, the hero veteran, hid $15 million while we struggled," she said, panning to her modest desk for effect. The video exploded, 10,000 likes in hours, comments calling me a greedy vet and worse. I sat in my Toronto penthouse, the CN Towers glow mocking my isolation, feeling the weight of their lies crush me. Then came the lawsuit. A week later, I got a letter from a Thunder Bay lawyer, some slick guy named Greg Harper, claiming James, Linda, and Sophie were suing me for $7 million. Their argument? I'd unjustly enriched myself while they sacrificed to raise me, and as family, they were entitled to my wealth. Entitled? I'd sent them $48,000 a year while Sophie blew it on Banff ski trips and Louis Vuitton bags. I called Aunt Nancy, my only ally, from my office overlooking Lake Ontario. "They're suing me, Nancy," I said, my voice shaking. "After everything I gave them." She sighed, her RCMP grit steady. "Michael, they're vultures. You don't owe them a cent." Her words were a lifeline, but the betrayal stung like a fresh wound. My family wasn't just greedy, they were trying to tear down everything I'd built. I fought back, not with anger, but with truth. I contacted a Toronto podcast, Veterans Voices, run by a fellow ex-soldier in Etobicoke. Over a crackling mic, I spilled my story, the PTSD that haunted me, the empire I'd built from a Thunder Bay warehouse, the $4,000 monthly payments my family never thanked me for. "I fought for Canada, and now I'm fighting my own blood," I said, my voice breaking. The episode aired in late July 2018, and Canada's veteran community rallied. Messages poured in from Halifax to Victoria, soldiers, spouses, even a retired general, calling me a hero, not a fraud. A Winnipeg veteran wrote, "You're one of us, Tremblay. Screw their lawsuit." The support was a bomb, but it couldn't erase the pain of Sophie's TikTok lies or Linda's voicemails, now accusing me of shaming the family. The final blow came in August 2018. Aunt Nancy called me to her Thunder Bay bungalow, her face pale. "Michael, I'm leaving you my estate," she said, clutching her coffee mug. "My savings, my house, everything. You're the only one who deserves it." I protested, but she cut me off. "You've been my rock, not them." When Linda and James heard, they lost it. Linda left a screaming voicemail, "You turned Nancy against us. You're stealing our family's future." Sophie posted another TikTok, claiming I'd manipulated Nancy for her millions. Nancy's estate was worth $200,000, not millions, but the lie spread like wildfire. I sat in my penthouse, the city skyline blurring through tears. I'd survived war, built an empire, and saved their home, only to be painted as a villain. The lawsuit loomed, Sophie's videos kept racking up views, and my family's greed was a knife in my back. I was done hiding, but I wasn't done fighting. The lawsuit and Sophie's viral TikToks were a storm that could have broken me, but I'd survived worse: Afghanistan's battlefields, Thunder Bay's cold rejection, and the weight of my own PTSD. By September 2018, Michael Tremblay made a choice: no more hiding, no more carrying a family that saw me as a bank account. I packed up my Toronto penthouse and moved to Victoria, British Columbia, where the Pacific Ocean's waves drowned out the echoes of my family's greed. My new home, a sleek cedar and glass house on Dallas Road, was secured with North Shield's best tech, a fortress for my peace. I cut off the $4,000 monthly payments to James and Linda, letting their McVicker Street house face the consequences of their choices. My lawyer sent a cease and desist letter to stop their harassment, and when Sophie's latest TikTok called me a thief of family dreams, I didn't flinch. I was done being their punching bag. North Shield security soared higher than ever. By 2019, we landed a $10 million contract to secure Canada's largest museum in Ottawa, protecting artifacts that told the story of our nation's heart. I poured my soul into giving back, funding a $500,000 scholarship for Canadian veterans with PTSD, helping them rebuild like I did. Aunt Nancy, my rock, visited me in Victoria, her eyes sparkling as we walked along the inner harbor. "You've built a legacy, Michael," she said, gripping my hand. "Not just money, but meaning." Her words healed wounds my family never acknowledged. When she passed away in 2020, leaving me her $200,000 estate, I donated half to a Thunder Bay veteran support group in her name. James, Linda, and Sophie didn't speak to me after that. They claimed I'd stolen Nancy's love. But I knew the truth. Nancy saw me when they didn't. The lesson I learned through this fire is simple but brutal. Your worth isn't tied to those who reject you, even if they're family. I spent years chasing approval from James, Linda, and Sophie, thinking their love would fill the holes war and neglect left behind. But real strength comes from building your own path, from standing tall when the world tries to bury you. I'm not the broken vet they labeled me. I'm Michael Tremblay, a soldier who fought for Canada, a man who turned pain into power, and a survivor who chose himself. You can too. Set boundaries, protect your heart, and never let anyone dim the fire you've earned. Sophie's still out there, posting about her security startup in Winnipeg. Good luck with that, sis. I'm living free, my scars a map of battles won, not lost. If this story moved you, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe to True North Courage. Share your thoughts below. Have you ever had to stand up to those closest to you? Your voice matters, and joining our community keeps these stories alive. Thank you for being here.